This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Here are your top stories of the day. Train announced Monday it will end its manufacturing operation in Fort Smith, a move that will result in the loss of 250 jobs. According to an official statement from the company, the decision to transfer the Train residential heating, ventilation, and air conditioning manufacturing facility in Fort Smith to 4 other U.S. facilities was made after a strategic review of the business operations. You can read more at talkbusiness.net. Charles Charlo, Tom Schick, Sherman Tate, and Gus Fratzinis were all inducted in the University of Arkansas Walton College of Business Hall of Fame on Friday night. You can read their stories of their lifetime of achievements on our website. The 4 men are the latest class of 2017, and Sherman Tate will join us in tomorrow's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Legislators are angling for a departure date to wrap up their session business on April 7th. That would put us near the halfway point for the 91st General Assembly today. Legislators went into session in early January and have so far passed bills dealing with tax cuts, medical marijuana, and higher education. And you can keep up with stories like those and many more at our website at talkbusiness.net. When we come back, if it's Monday, it's John Brummett. He's in studio for a chat. We're back after this.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
And it is Monday, so we are joined now by John Brummett. Always good to have you with us on a Monday.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
You bet.
Let's begin with talking. We're going to talk Trump in the first block here. We'll talk
Really?
state politics in the second block. That's kind of been our format. It works.
If you think so.
Donald Trump has had a little bit of a rough week. He may, in some people's minds, have had a rough 3 or 4 weeks here, but for sure last week, reminiscent of some of his weeks on the campaign trail. Mike Flynn in trouble. We've got the credibility issues with the media from a multitude of different White House advisors, the travel ban shot down in court, a little saber rattling from North Korea over the weekend. Do you think Trump regains his footing eventually with some staff changes, as is rumored, or does he finally somehow at some point in time start to fit into the mold of, I can't run the presidency like I run my businesses?
I have to think that but this is conventional thinking, so it has nothing to do with Donald Trump by the evidence that we've seen thus far. I have to think that even he knows in his private moments and with whomever he trusts the most, that this kind of chaos can't sustain for 4 years. You just can't do it. This kind of pace and this kind of constant falderall. So I think, and what I'm looking for from him, and what I think he needs to do, and I happen to think his presidency is salvageable. I really do. Is just be normal, normalcy. There's been a few signs that he can do that at times. He has embraced the one China policy. He has made some criticism of aggressive Israeli settlements and disputed territory, which is sort of an Obama position.
Right.
The North Korea test firing, his response to that was muted. He did not get all testosterone-y. He was muted. Now, there's always, even with these signs of normalcy, you're going to see Trump weirdness at this point. And we have these images that on social media now being written about in the mainstream media that Saturday night down at Mar-a-Lago. He's having a big dinner with friends out on this terrace, and all of a sudden he and the Japanese Prime Minister are in separate huddles being advised of this North Korea action, and then they're having the classified materials being shared and classified information is being discussed about national security with a bunch of these guests with their phones around the table shooting.
The Winter White House needs a situation room, is what you're saying.
It's not really going to be the Winter White House if it's not more secure than that. It's a nice place for him to go, but you can't have a bunch of strangers having a wedding reception while you're doing national security. It's got to be more secure than that, and he cannot be doing these kinds of things in public. All of that is to say, I'm seeing some mixed signals, and I would love to have a good argument about Medicaid block grants and Medicare vouchers and Affordable Care Act changes and infrastructure spending and all those kind of things I can really get into, but that don't cause the nation to go to bed at night wondering if they're going to get up the next morning.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking for from him, and I just think there are occasional glimpses that he's headed that way, and I don't see how he can sustain being any other way.
Do you think maybe there's some calculation? Let's go crazy these first few weeks. Let's show our base of support that we're going to do some things that are unconventional. We're going to do what we said we'd do on the campaign trail. So he starts with these low approval ratings. There's nowhere for him to go but up if he starts acting a little bit more consistent in his behavior, which is what we saw on the campaign trail when he was disciplined. His numbers improved.
There is a theory, and some people espouse it, and I wonder about it, that this is all sort of calculated madness. You know the old phrase, method to the madness, that there is some, that while you and I, and to a greater extent the folks on hand in Washington covering it, can't help but talk about this melee that we're having that is so irregular and frightful, it really doesn't amount to much in terms of lasting policy, and it's keeping our attention off the conservative agenda that's coming. That would be brilliant and also somewhat cynical, but I think we have evidence to suggest that this is just Trump's personality at play. Also, it is interesting, we're seeing pretty significant, credible reports that he's starting to talk to some of his friends about, is this Rice Priebus any good?
Right.
And
they
what
have
about,
the right people in the
and
right
what about
places.
the guy doing my briefings? Melissa McCarthy may not be as good as I thought she was going to be. You know,
Sean Spicer.
I get them confused anymore. So, signs of some glimpses of normalcy, and no way to go except more normal, because it can't stay this weird much longer, I don't think.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break, come back and talk some state politics.
All right.
All right, we're with John Brummett. I'm Roby Brock. We're back right after this.
Circuits turn on the lights by making a connection, by closing the loop. At Entergy, we believe our economy is circular too. What you put in comes back. So we invest billions in new infrastructure, which helps attract new industry, which helps create new jobs. We partner with local communities to electrify the economy. And together, we power life. Entergy.
When was the last time you felt free? It's time to uncover that feeling again with the compassion of a cross and shield, accepted by over 90% of doctors and specialists, and the power of a card that opens doors in all 50 states, giving you the freedom to love, to dream, to dance like no one is watching. Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Live fearless.
And welcome back to Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. We're with John Brummett. We're turning our attention to state politics. Let's talk about constitutional amendments. This is kind of a phase of the legislature where we're going to see a lot more activity. A lot of sponsors on a tort reform proposal. You and I have talked about that some in the past. Actually, quite a few sponsors on a voter ID constitutional amendment. It's got some momentum. But the Speaker of the House has something in his hip pocket that you wrote about on Sunday. What is it?
Well, on the last day, he put in what's called a shell bill, which sounds weird, and people who aren't familiar with the legislature think it's really weird. But it's just when you want to meet a deadline, you put your bill in, you have your your bill title indicating what it's about, and then the actual details can be filled in by amendment later. And when the Speaker puts his name on something, I think, well, this need to check into it. So I called him and asked him what he was up to, and it turns out he says it's something I encouraged him to do months ago in the Capitol corridor.
It's never a good idea for the Speaker to be taking advice from you.
No, and he shouldn't have admitted it. And I wonder if he's possibly serious about passing it, if he wants to admit that I was the one that put the bug in his ear. But I have thought for a long time that we make it entirely too easy to amend our state constitution. A lot of states require special legislative supermajorities rather than just a simple majority to refer one, and then to pass one. Some states require that the voters approve it by, say, 60% or something like that. We're getting a lot of weird stuff getting close to coming into our Constitution, like these guys from Missouri and their casino gambling monopolies. They were going to put themselves into the Constitution. And he said that he's talked to legislators about that. There are a couple other proposals on that that actually have some text to them about the majority vote needed to refer an amendment or to pass one. And he just wants to keep the option open. I think voter ID would seem to be the second one because it has, Republicans are not satisfied winning 62-38. They think if they can keep some poor people from voting on the voter ID, they can win even bigger, I guess, is what that's all about. But that's probably the leading choice to be the second amendment after tort reform. But watch this thing, whether we make it easier, make it harder to amend our Constitution.
But I know where you stand on this, because you do think it needs to be harder to amend the Constitution.
And I'm getting
here.
some pushback from a lot of people.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
well,
the people rule, and I mean, a majority ought to be able to change the Constitution.
See, you want to get into the Electoral College? We can talk about whether the people rule?
Well, we're talking about the Constitution.
Well, okay, I'm talking about, where's the Electoral College? It's in the federal Constitution. And how do you amend the federal Constitution?
You want to go federal or you want to go state on here?
You're
apples and oranges.
No, I believe that they're apples and apples. They're both constitutions. We treasure our U.S. Constitution. It is the gold standard of constitutions. And it is a statement of principles that doesn't go into all the minutiae that we put into our state constitution. In order to amend the federal Constitution, you've got to get a 2/3 vote of the Congress, or 2/3 of the states to call a constitutional convention. Then 3/4 of the states, 38, have to ratify it. We make it hard, so you don't get a lot of
riffraff's the word you're looking for.
So I started to say it, but I was looking for a better one. You don't get a lot of trashy minutia into what ought to be a statement of principle and precept and concepts. In Arkansas, we've got things like Amendment 59, which goes into great detail down to the decimal points about how our property tax rates are going to be. We're passing these amendments that our legislature is now having to concoct a medical marijuana industry from nothing because we passed it. I'm not necessarily against it. There are states, the federal government makes it harder, there are other states that make it harder, and I've long thought we ought to make it harder. Now, the pushback I'm getting from my liberal friends, both of them, here in Arkansas, is well, we see what they're playing you, John. They're going to pass this tort reform, and then you're going to have gone along with this thing to make it harder for us to undo tort reform. And I'm thinking, well, if they're that smart and that cynical and they want to behave in that way, okay, I'm more interested in general, broader concepts. And it'll be interesting to see how it would go. I think it'll be the voter ID, it'll be the second one, but keep an eye on this one.
And the first one will be tort reform. And they could still pass three if
there's
there's some agreement.
They have agreed by
them.
some majority right
there's still a chance we can see
to suspend the rules, yeah.
All right, lastly, you have a Tuesday column in the works. Give us a preview.
In the works, it's done.
It's done.
I hope.
All right, give us a preview.
It's about your favorite interview subject.
Senator Tom Cotton?
Yes, U.S. Senator Tom Cotton.
Well, he's second to you, John. You're my favorite interview subject.
I was hoping that you would say that. As you know, I do not always respond favorably to some of Senator Cotton's policies and statements, and I don't tomorrow. He has gone all in for Trump. He's gone in for the Trump, what I call Trumpism, which is this new kind of populism. And he has sort of turned his back on the people who helped him get elected, like the Koch brothers and Club for Growth, who are business people who support immigration because they think it's good for the economy and good for business. He has taken Jeff Sessions' place in leading this legislative battle to not restrict illegal immigration, but restrict legal immigration.
So you're offering your thoughts on why he's made that pivot, or have you talked to him about why he's made that pivot?
Of course I'm not talking to him. He won't talk to me. And not, his press aide won't even talk to me. I'd welcome, he has my number, and I'd welcome a call from him. And if he has a town hall, as he's promised, maybe I'll go to it and ask him a question. But my analysis as a political observer is that he has made the calculation, and I think it's an accurate political calculation in Arkansas. Trump's the place to be in Arkansas right now. I think his favorables are high. I don't think the people of Arkansas are distressed at all by the things you and I talk about. And I think this restrict immigration and help the poor man, because the theory is that Arkansas low-income wages are being, American low-income wages are being suppressed because too many legal immigrations, too many relatives getting in on green cards. But I say it puts Tom Cotton on the microscopic right of Donald Trump on the issue.
All right. We'll look forward to reading it. It is in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
In the morning, Tuesday morning.
And
paper.
you can catch it online at arkansasonline.com.
You betcha.
Thank you, Mr. Brummett.
Thank you.
Always good to be with you.
Okay.
That is all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.